Historians and other students of the Nixon presidency have chosen to ignore the full collection of secretly recorded White House conversations relating to Watergate, which slowly but surely have become almost fully available over the past 4 decades. Before now, no one has attempted to catalog and transcribe all of Nixon's Watergate conversations, and to examine and reconstruct this history based on this primary source material, the likes of which has never before existed. The account in the pages that follow is based on this unique collection, and it is presented not as transcripts, but rather as narrative and dialogue drawn from and based on them. The story that follows is a first-person account of what I found in this unique historical record. In telling this story, I have only edited the transcripts to make them readable and understandable, correcting the obvious anomalies that inevitably occur in spontaneous conversations, and often compressing material to report its essence. Almost all of the conversations from which this account is drawn are available online at the Nixon Presidential Library's website, http://nixon.archives.gov/virtual library/tape-excerpts/index.php. The exceptions are those from June 1972, which are available at the Miller Center, which is devoted to presidential scholarship at the University of Virginia, http://web2.millercenter.org/rmn/audiovisual/WH recordings. The Nixon Defense, both legal and political because they were inseparable, was assembled behind closed doors in a process that began in the days following the arrests at the Watergate headquarters of the Democratic Party. The first public statement of a defense was made by Nixon on June 22, 1972, that nobody in his White House was involved in this bizarre incident, and Nixon's final firewall explanation of his defense was issued 11 months later, on May 22, 1973. The latter followed the firing of his top aides, including your author, who had become the centerpiece of his defense. Because I was deeply involved in and later the focus of the Nixon defense, I always hoped someone else would tell this story. I also understood such an undertaking meant the not easily accomplished task of transcribing all of Richard Nixon's Watergate conversations. Of course, we knew the broad outlines of his activities that led to his resignation, and he did provide some additional details in his memoir. But he, too, relied primarily on conversations that had been transcribed by investigators and prosecutors, leaving most of the historical facts buried in his secretly recorded conversations. Having now transcribed all those conversations and grasping the content of the newly transcribed material, I understand why he wanted no more information than was already easily available made public. For while this additional information explains many of the activities he was responsible for, those rationales do not redound to Richard Nixon's glory. The National Archives and Records Administration, NARA, which Congress charged with the preservation of this historical Nixon material, has prepared, and continues to update and refine as they have released more of the Nixon recordings, a detailed subject log highlighting all the content of all the recorded conversations. This can be used to identify topics and the persons addressed, along with times and dates. No one has ever bothered to identify all the Watergate conversations that can be located with these subject logs. Today, that can be done digitally. When I did it in 2009, I had to do it manually, which took several months, although given the volume of material even today, it would take almost as long. Depending on how you count them, as it is not always clear when one conversation ends and another begins, there are approximately 1,000 Watergate-related conversations. By my listing, there are approximately 1,000 conversations. Some of them run only minutes, while others run many hours. After my assembling a list, I first determined which of them had previously been transcribed. Virtually all existing transcripts had been prepared from the analog recordings first made available by NARA. However, it is now possible to digitize these recordings, and when that technology became available, NARA began releasing digital editions. When I started this project in 2009, I was way ahead of the NARA release schedule for the Watergate-related material, so I decided to digitize that material before NARA had done so.